Have you ever been told this is the diagnosis, but felt deep down that something still didn't make sense? This episode is for parents who've had to become advocates overnight, learning medical language, navigating systems, and carrying the emotional weight of not knowing what comes next. In this conversation, Choairy shares her journey of raising a child with a rare genetic disorder, what it took to find the right answers, and why trusting your instincts can change everything. We talk about early intervention, mental health, grief for the life you imagined, and the quiet strength it takes to keep going when the past looked nothing like you expected. If you are feeling exhausted, uncertain, or unseen as a parent, this episode will meet you where you are and remind you that your voice matters. Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. This holiday season, skip the candles and gift cards. Give the woman in your life something that truly matters. Or better yet, give it to yourself. The gift inside is for every woman who spent decades being everything to everyone else. It's time to remember who you are and rediscover your happiness. This isn't just a book, it's a permission to put yourself first again. Available now, because the best gift you can give is helping someone find themselves. Welcome to Michelle Choairy. She is a mom of what she started calling a complex kid. Since he was born, she had to find her way around developmental delays, autism, ADHD, special education services, and the list keeps getting longer. She has spent the past 10 years searching for a way to help her son with his developmental issues. He is now diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder called TBR1, with only 170 kids in the world with this diagnosis. And so here she is today, and now she is also advocating for this rare disease, sharing with people. So welcome, Michelle. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Irina. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So how did this start?
Yeah, so it kind of went through a little bit on my bio there, but it all started with my son. First of all, I was an older mom. I got married a little bit older in life, and pregnancy was a geriatric pregnancy. And even though I was only 38 at the time. And so we went through all of the things they go through. And then when we were about 29 weeks, we went in for an ultrasound, and they said, you got to go to the hospital. So I went straight to the hospital. It was a hospital bed, and he was born really early. He was tiny. He was only 3 pounds when he was born, stayed in the NICU. And then, as he grew, we started seeing some delays. We started seeing some hyperactivity, attention disorders, and things like that. And his very first diagnosis was actually because he wasn't talking. And the interesting thing these days, Irina, is that when a kid's not talking by the age of 2 or 2.5, the first diagnosis that they go to is autism. But at the time, for me, my son never fit that mold of autism. And everybody was pushing me towards that. And I'm like, he's social. Are a few things here, but he's not really here. And so then we started getting other diagnoses. So came ADHD, and then came all these other things. And it wasn't until about 3 years ago that, after much advocating, much pushing medical providers, that we finally got a genetic testing, and it came back positive. And so, but had I done that test 3 years before, we wouldn't have found out, because it wasn't even really on the radar for people to actually be able to test for that. So it's been a long road with my son. He's doing just fine. But I've had to learn how to be an advocate for him, really. Like, okay, this doesn't fit this mold. This is what we need to do, and really be, I don't know what you want to say, but like a care coordinator, an advocate, really. And so about a year ago, after a lot of people came to me for questions about this kind of stuff, I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so I started what I call Wisdom for Complex Kids. And now I'm advocating for parents who are going through special education. And because of my medical background, as you can see, I'm in scrubs right now because I'm going to work right after we finish recording. I started doing also insurance stuff because parents don't know that you can actually submit. Parents kind of get crazy with this stuff, and we end up paying for providers who are not in our insurance in network. And so we end up paying for it. And so, but I don't think the parents know that you can actually submit for out of network benefits. So you can actually get some of that money back. And then also the states that we live in, most of them have some kind of program for kiddos who have special needs. So I do all of that for parents, and it's been very rewarding because then you can see the kiddos getting what they need. And so this is where I am. I'm out here just trying to get the word out in the world, that I'm teaching parents how to do this, how to become advocates.
Totally. Thank you. Thank you. And it must have been a very difficult journey when you had so much pushback from service providers and like, you have this thing. And I love, when you go to the doctor, they have this schedule and you have to check the boxes. They don't even know who you are. They have seen you maybe for 20 minutes and they give you a diagnosis without any, just because you check the boxes.
Yes. I'll tell you a story. This is a great story, and it drives me crazy. And at the time, I just cried. But when Drake was about 2.5, almost 3 years old, we had been doing early intervention through the state. So we had providers coming in, trying to get him to speak, trying to help him calm his body. He had a lot of sensory issues, like the eating was bad. Anyway, so one of the supervisors that was kind of overseeing his case, she came and she said, well, it might be time for you to go and seek a diagnosis. And I said, okay. So anyway, she's like, well, you probably want to see either a neurologist or a developmental pediatrician. And at the time, a developmental pediatrician and a neurologist through the CHOC, which is the Children's Hospital of Orange County, where I live, it was about a year wait to see either one. And then I called one of the private providers around here, and I don't know how it happened, but they're like, we have a cancellation for tomorrow. Can you come in? And I said, yes. So we're going to be there. So we get to the neurologist's office, and, this is a pediatric neurologist because you go to somebody who sees kids on a regular basis. And we walk in, and my son was 3 at the time, very hyperactive. And they take us into this room. There's nothing there. No toys, nothing. We were in there for 40 minutes waiting for him. Of course, by this time, like my 3-year-old is bouncing off the walls, right? He's like, what am I doing in here? And so the doctor comes in, he looks at my son, he says this, and my son doesn't look at him. And he goes, well, so, the diagnosis I'm going to give you is of autism, because he didn't come to me. And also, this is the best part, Marina, and I cannot make this up. Okay. I did not make this up. He looks at me and he says, autism, it kind of is like the flu. You say that you have, a sore throat, and then you say you have the flu, or you have a runny nose, you say you have the flu. So, it's kind of like the flu. So if you have any of these things, it's autism. And I was like, you spent 5 minutes with my child after you left him in a room for 40 minutes. He's 3 years old. And, he actually wanted to interact with him. So it was, anyway, I walked out of there, and needless to say, I was crying for days, actually for years, because I was like, this is crazy. Like, autism is not like the flu. There is a very specific way of diagnosing autism. And so anyway, of course, that was an awful, awful experience. And at that time, I don't think that I realized what was happening. But later on in life, I was like, you know what? He was never, this neurologist was never supposed to be a part of my son's team, my son's village. And so I'm glad that it happened because we never went back to him. And then we did finally get a developmental pediatrician, and there were lots of things that happened. But that's just a snippet of what the medical system sometimes does to parents, especially parents who are desperate to find an answer, right? So
Yeah.
my child has the flu, so he has autism. Anyway, it's just crazy to me.
So what would you, like, looking back at your experience, what would you, I guess, recommend your younger self or parents who are raising kids like at the early stages?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm a type A. I've been in medical sales for 18 years. And so I'm a go-getter. I'm not going to just sit and wait for things to happen. But I do go back and I look at parents who are going through this right now. And I remember the feeling that I had when people would come to me and they would say, oh, he's too young. So-and-so didn't speak until they were 6. Oh, he's too young. He's just like you were, Michelle, when you were younger. Or they would look at my husband and say the same thing. Oh, John was the same way. And so those things, like, I look back and I remember thinking to myself, am I crazy? Am I seeing something here that nobody else is seeing? And I questioned myself a lot. Am I just imagining this? And for the parents who are going through this right now, if you have that feeling, which I call the mama gut, right? If you have that mama gut, if you have that feeling that there's something wrong, go find out. There's only 2 things that are going to happen. One, it's going to tell you that, yes, you were right. Or the other option is, well, no, you're wrong. So, there's only 2 outcomes. And so why not go and research and take your child to a developmental pediatrician? And I always say a developmental pediatrician because pediatricians are great and they are the, quote unquote screeners of the kiddos, but they're not specialists when it comes to developmental delays, to developmental issues. And so that's when you go to a developmental pediatrician. And they have so much more training, so much more access to things. So if you're feeling like there's something, of course, talk to the pediatrician first, but just listen to that mama gut and go try to find a little bit more help than just your pediatrician.
Totally. Would you recommend starting with a genetic, or it's because in your case it was the result, I guess, after so many trials and tribulations.
Yes.
You finally found out the culprit.
So Irina, one of the things, so you got to remember that I went through this, he's 11 now. So when I was going through this, things they were a little different. I think that the world has finally realized that genetics plays a huge role in what is happening with the kiddos right now. And I want to say that the last statistics that I heard is that autism is being diagnosed like, water. So ADHD is kind of the same thing. And sometimes they're missing a lot of things. But what I'm trying to say is that 1 out of 34 kids these days, someone is going to have autism, at least an autism diagnosis. But the thing is that you have to start early. You have to start things early. And so the sooner you catch these things, the sooner it's going to happen. And right now, because of all of this, I think that if a child is showing some delays, they're testing right away, which is great. We had to go through a lot to even get that testing approved through our insurance. And then, but they're diagnosing kiddos. Now we have about a little bit over 200 kiddos who are a part of the TBR1 syndrome umbrella or family. There might be more out there in the world and we don't know about it, but there's a little bit over 200 of them, and some of them are being diagnosed when they're still under 1 year old. And the scary thing about that is that we don't know what this is going to bring us. Some idea, we have some kiddos who are diagnosed late and later in life. And I hate to use this word, but it is also a spectrum, right? You have the kiddos who are more severely affected and the ones that are a little on the mild side. And there's everything in between there. And this is just this diagnosis, but when we speak to parents who are going through some kind of developmental disorder, I think that they're doing these genetic tests a lot sooner than they used to, which is great.
Good.
Yeah.
How can you involve your partner or family members or even friends in supporting child's development?
Yeah, that was a hard thing for me. That was really hard because they are usually the ones that look at you and go, "You're crazy. It's going to be okay." And of course, they're doing this not to make you feel bad. They're doing this to make you feel better, to say, "Hey, it's going to be okay." And I think that is what they're trying to do. And so, one thing that I did learn through my time was that with your partner, the best thing that you can do is make sure that he or she is coming to those doctor's appointments with you. If they are not doing that, they're going to say and think that you're crazy. So they need to be a 50% participant in your child's delays and your child's medical needs, and make sure that everything is translated for them, right? If you are the one getting all of the information, you still need to get them to understand what it is that's happening. And also those IEP meetings, which is, in the school districts, you have to involve your partner, and that is kind of how you do that part. As far as the extended family, that was a hard thing for me because I don't think that they thought that I was not accepting a diagnosis of autism. They thought that I was just dismissing an autism diagnosis. And that was hard because it wasn't that I was dismissing an autism diagnosis. That's not what it was. If he had hit all three, or four things that you need to have within autism to get that, I think that I would have been, hey, that's the diagnosis. But somehow I knew inside that there was something more than that. There was something bigger than that. And so that was hard, but you navigate that in the best way that you can. And sometimes that's going to be sitting everybody down and saying, these are the things that are happening. This is what the doctor so-and-so said. Here's a printout of what it is that I'm talking about. And I will tell you that once we got the diagnosis of the genetic disorder, it was so he doesn't have autism, right? So, I'm not going to say that it was. Of course, you never want another diagnosis. You never want that. But it's okay, there was a reason why I was still pursuing this, why I was looking for this. And here it is. It is so much bigger than he's got this diagnosis. These days, I'll tell you, Arina, his diagnosis sheet is 1 page long with everything that he has. Would I rather just have one diagnosis? Just one on top? Yes. But it's a sheet long, with everything that we are dealing with. So anyway, dealing with people around you is hard. And I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot about this because I feel like it's important for people to understand that parents who have these developmentally delayed children, they're going through something that you, from somebody on the outside, you have no idea what it is if you have not gone through it. The struggle in the house, the struggle, like I will tell you, we didn't go to a restaurant. We couldn't go to a restaurant because it would be, my husband would have to walk around with him while I'm eating. And then I would take him while he eats. Like we couldn't go and sit down at a restaurant and just have a conversation with people. So, and then you kind of start seeing people getting away from inviting you to do things. It is an isolating thing. And the isolation also comes with grief. And the grieving process takes a long time because when you find out you're pregnant, you have this vision of what it's going to be. I don't know if you have a vision, but you have these expectations. I'm going to be a mom. We're going to go to the park. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to, he's going to grow up to be an NBA basketball player. Whatever it is that you have in your mind, you have those things. And then these things start happening and they're falling behind and falling behind and falling behind. And you have to understand that they might not be an NBA player. They may not be able to play soccer. And so that expectation, that dream that you had, you have to rewire that. You have to grieve through that. So if you are in any shape or form, first of all, a parent who's going through this, I will tell you, please remember that you're not alone. And there are ways for you to make yourself not alone. And we can go and talk about this in a little bit. We can talk about a little bit later. For the people who are listening and you are a friend or a family member that has parents who are going through this, be patient and help them go through this. Be understanding and don't isolate them. You have no idea what it's like to go through it and how isolating it is and how hard that grieving process is, along with losing your friends is kind of how it feels like most of the time.
Totally. You're so right. How did you manage yourself, your stress, and as you were going through it? Did you create practices for yourself?
Do we ever? I don't know. It took a long time. I definitely had postpartum depression. And that was, especially, when you have a child that stays in the NICU, you had a child, but you can't bring them home. And you come home at night because you can't stay with them and you leave your child behind. So, that's kind of the first thing that starts. So the depression, settles. And then all of these things, the anxiety that comes with, what's happening to my kid, what's happening to me. How am I going to be able to deal with these things? And for a long time, I just pushed through it. And I was like, I can do this. Like I told you, I'm a type A, I'm in sales, I can do anything. And that's what people kept telling me. If there's somebody who can do this, it's you, Michelle. And so people just kept telling me these things and I kept believing it until one day my sister, she comes to me and she says, Michelle, have you noticed that you repeat yourself 3-4 times? And I said, what? You repeat everything that you say at least 3 or 4 times. And I said, I never noticed that. And I think it had something to do with my son and how I had to repeat things for him so he would speak. And she's like, I think that you should see somebody. Things kind of got really bad. Like I could tell that I was my blood pressure was super high. I would go to work and then I would come home and I went straight to bed, all of those things started happening. And so I looked for a psychologist, somebody who could help me in talk therapy. And I also looked for a psychiatrist. And I will tell you, I have no shame in saying this because one thing that I found out is that you don't know that you have anxiety and depression until you don't have it anymore. And that's a weird way of doing this, but it wasn't until I started taking my medication and I started talking to somebody and I didn't have that, like, I don't know how to explain, but this thing inside of you that is just like constantly like, and that was the anxiety, that was the depression, that was the, all of those things together. And it wasn't until that was gone that I was like, wow, I was a very anxious person. And then I stopped repeating myself 3 or 4 times. All moms and dads, and I think everybody in the world, really, I think everybody needs somebody to talk to. And so I believe in psychotherapy. I believe in, if you have religion in your life, maybe that's where you go. For me, it was a therapist that I found, and she really helped me. Took me a long time to be able to learn the strategies to not get back into that pit, that hole that I was in. And I tell this story to a lot of people too. There was one day, and this was the tipping point for me. Like I said, I'm in the operating room. I do medical sales, so I'm in the operating room most of the days. And I was in surgery with one of my favorite orthopedic surgeons. I've known him for years, and we had like 5 or 6 surgeries that day. And that day, I had the most awful headache. I drank water. I ate, I took ibuprofen. I did all these things and it would not go away. So I was like, I wonder if I have high blood pressure. So I went to pre-op and I had one of the pre-op nurses take my blood pressure. And it was, I can't remember, like 150 over 90 plus. It was super high. She looks at me and she says, take some deep breaths. Let's take it again. She took it again and it still came up. And I was like, okay, that's why I have this headache, because it wasn't going away. Even with my ibuprofen, it wasn't going away. So I went back into the room and laughing, ha 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 ha. The reason why I have this this headache is because of this. The surgeon drops everything and he looks at me and he goes, Michelle, you are about to have a stroke. Get out of here. Go to an urgent care. You need to take something that's going to lower that blood pressure. And I was like, no, I'll go back. I'll go after. Anyway, I went to the urgent care and this 20-year-old PA, he was a physician's assistant, came in and he's like, ma'am, are you under a lot of stress? I was like, and then I just unloaded on this 20-year-old kid. Work, I have a kid at home, my husband, blah, blah, blah. And then, it's like the roof came tumbling in and this 20-year-old kid is looking at me going, I'm so sorry, ma'am. I am so sorry. And I'm like, and then after I was done crying, I was like, I need to take some time off. And I was lucky enough to work for a company that I could take medical leave for myself. And so that's what I did. And so I took, I think, a month off and I spent that time with my kids and I went back home to Brazil and we visited family and kind of going back to my roots and just allowing everything else to just stay behind. And that was probably one of the best things I've ever done. Anyway.
Totally. So what is your one non-negotiable now? So you don't get to that level of.
So I'm going to tell you that this is the first year so my job is very demanding. Our hours are kind of on surgeon schedules. And so if you come into the ER right now with a broken ankle, they'll probably schedule you for surgery later on tonight or maybe the next morning. And sometimes it's the weekends. Sometimes I get calls like at, midnight and it's like, hey, I need you to come in or whatever. So this year, I finally, after 18 years of doing this, I said, I'm not working weekends anymore. And so that was the best thing that I did, because now I spend the weekends with the kids. And so, but that was and it took a long time. But, for me, for a long time, my non-negotiable was my psychotherapy. And so that's kind of what I had to do for myself to be able to keep myself together. Yeah.
I think it's important to keep yourself sane.
Yes.
Are there any daily practices that you do for yourself today?
I don't know if I should talk about them because they're not great. Well, I do get up early, and I have been trying to exercise more. So I've been doing Pilates, so I'm proud of that. I go to Pilates 2 to 3 times a week, so that helps a lot. I walk all day long because I'm in and out of hospitals all day, but it's not like I actually go to the gym and run on a treadmill. Then that's the one thing that I wish I could sit here and tell you. I go running. I'm a runner. I am so envious of people who are runners because I've never been able to do it. And so I live vicariously through you, because that is not for me. Not for me. These people who run, it's like they're zen, and, they're like, everything is good. Nothing bothers me. I'm like, oh my gosh, if that's what I need to do, I don't think that I can do that. But one of the things that has really helped me in the past year kind of find myself, and it's kind of what I've been doing, is this kind of stuff. Getting people to listen to what it's like to have a child who you have to do extra for, how to advocate. So I have a podcast too, Irina, and it's called Complex Kids, Simple Solutions. So if you're a parent who's listening, like, this is the kind of stuff we talk about, like how to get you better, how to, like how there are people out there that can help you in different ways. And sometimes it's just listening to people and what it is that they're doing, and then knowing that you're not alone. So sometimes it's just that on the podcast. But I did start doing a lot of more. I'm actually a special education advocate now. And so for the parents who are listening, if your child has an IEP, for your listeners, Irina, I'm happy to do a 30, 45-minute IEP review. So all you need to do, you'll probably have all my information, but you just have to go to my website, wisdom4complexkids.com, and just to book a call with me. And we will review the IEP, even if it's just for a few minutes, and I can give you some pointers. But if you're struggling with an IEP, if you're struggling with your insurance company, trying to advocate for your child, that's what I do now, kind of, on the side. I'm still keep my day job, but this is the kind of stuff, helping others and actually serving others, is what's kind of keeping me happy and balanced right now.
Totally. And yes, thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing. After going through your own pain and through your own difficulty, you know the things inside out. Sometimes, it's the best kind of, you are from a best perspective, you can help because you've been there, in and out. You're not just theoretically about it. You actually live through it.
For sure. And one of the things, and I want to tell you another story, because I think that this is, I love telling stories, if you haven't noticed. Sorry about that. And this is the reason why I kept doing this, because so I started my podcast. Before I had my own podcast, I would go and guest on podcasts. And then I started doing these things it's called Thrive, which is I teach parents how to really bring it all together when you have a special needs child, or a complex kid is what I like to call. And if you have a complex kid, and it's not medically complex, but just complex, right? They need a little bit more of our energy than us. But I was guesting in a lot of podcasts, and I got a call. I actually, something showed up on my calendar, because I had my calendar on the website, and I was and then it was like, my child has TBR1. I would like to talk to you. And I said, wow. I get on the call with them, and they're from Israel. And I was like, how do you find? He's like, I listened to a podcast that you were in, and I heard you talking about TBR1. And I was like, you're listening to a podcast that I was in Israel? What? And he was like, and it was such good information. And we just found out that my daughter has it. And so I wanted to talk to you about what did you do? And like how, and I was like, I was floored. And I honestly, to this day, I still hold on to that call because I was able to help somebody on the other side of the world because I'm talking about these things. And so that alone is what keeps me going, doing these things. That's why I'm here talking to you. That's why I'm posting on social media. That's why, it fuels me and it makes me so happy. It's just, then things kind of, life is a little bit better, right? Because you're helping other people.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. And it's incredible.
Yeah.
Having that. And the power of podcasts and the power of sharing stories because we connect through stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we relate to one another.
Yeah, for sure. So I hope that my story is connected with somebody today.
Yes. People would like to connect and learn more about you. Where would they go?
So I'm on social media, Michelle Choairy. You can find me either under Michelle Choairy or also Wisdom for Complex Kids. My website is Wisdom for Complex Kids, and my michellechoairy.com. Also, that's more of my advocating part of my business. And so I'm happy. I'll give you everything. You can put all my handles, social media handles there, but just book a call with me. Let me know if you're listening and you would like to have me on and, or just talk to me or pick my brain or whatever. You can always send me an email. It's michellechoairy@gmail.com. And I'm happy to help in any way that I can, anybody that calls or anybody that reaches out to me.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Advocating is important, especially with such a rare condition as this, and knowing that people are not alone, that they can speak to somebody who's been there, done that is incredible. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.